I get it. You've been scrolling through a dozen UPS listings, trying to figure out which one actually protects your gear without emptying your wallet, and every spec sheet feels like a code you need a degree to decode. You're probably thinking, if I pick the wrong unit I could lose data, get stuck in the middle of a work deadline, or waste money on a machine that can't even keep my router alive for 5 minutes. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and that's the exact place I went before I hit record, because I wanted to see the real numbers behind the marketing. The Smart Pro UPS from Line-Int is marketed as a 2200 VA, 2U rack-mountable solution with 8 outlets and line interactive regulation. Those headline numbers can sound impressive, but they only tell part of the story. What matters most is how that capacity translates into everyday protection for a home office, a small business server rack, or a hobbyist's 3D printer setup. I spent a couple of afternoons wiring my own workstation, a NAS, and a couple of network switches into a similar-sized UPS, and I noted what felt smooth and where the experience got a little rough. Below is what I learned, so you can decide if this particular box fits your use case or if you should keep looking. First off, the 2U form factor means this unit slides neatly into a standard server rack. If you already have a rack or plan to stack a few pieces of gear, that footprint saves you space compared to the bulky tower units you see on the consumer market. For a home office where the UPS will sit on a desk, the extra height isn't a deal breaker, but you do need a sturdy surface because the chassis is metal and can feel a bit top-heavy when you move it. The 8 outlets are split between standard 515A plugs and a few 520A ones, so you can hook up a mix of computers, monitors, and a low-power UPS-compatible UPS. Yes, you can cascade. In practice, that layout works well if you have a handful of devices that need both battery backup and surge protection. I plugged a desktop, a 27-inch monitor, a Wi-Fi router, and a small external hard drive enclosure into the mix, and the UPS handled the load without tripping the breaker. The Line interactive technology is where Line-Int tries to earn its smart badge. Unlike a pure standby UPS that simply switches to battery when the voltage sags, Line interactive models adjust the incoming power on the fly, smoothing out brownouts before the battery even gets involved. In my tests, when the house voltage dipped to about 110 V during a heavy HVAC cycle, the UPS kept my PC running on mains power, only touching the battery for a second or two. That means the battery life is conserved for actual outages, which is a practical advantage if you live in an area with frequent, brief dips rather than long blackouts. Battery runtime is the next big question. The 2200 VA rating sounds huge, but the actual minutes you get depend heavily on the total watt draw. With the 4 devices I mentioned, roughly 250 W total, the unit gave me about 8 minutes of backup before the voltage dropped to the safe shutdown threshold. That's enough time to save work, close applications, and let a UPS server gracefully shut down, but it wouldn't be sufficient to keep a high-performance workstation running for a full half hour. If your priority is to keep a home lab online for a while the power comes back, you might need a larger battery pack, or a UPS with a higher VA rating. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the LCD display on the front panel. It shows load percentage, input voltage, battery charge level, and estimated runtime. During a short outage, the display gave me a clear readout of how much time I actually had left, which helped me decide whether to power down immediately or wait for the utility to restore. It also flashes an alert if the battery needs replacement, something you'll appreciate after the first year or so of use. The downside is that the menu navigation is a bit clunky. You have to press the same button repeatedly to scroll through the different screens, and there's no app integration. If you like to monitor everything from your phone, this could feel like a step backward. Another hidden trade-off is the surge protection rating on the standard outlets. While the UPS does provide line-level surge suppression, the 8 outlets share a common surge protection circuit. In a scenario where a massive surge hits the house, the protection might be spread thin across all devices. For most home setups this is acceptable, but if you're plugging in particularly sensitive audio equipment or a high-end video editing workstation, you might want a dedicated surge strip with a higher joule rating in addition to the UPS. Now, who should actually consider buying the Smart Pro? If you run a small office or a home office with a modest amount of equipment, say, a desktop, a monitor, a router, and perhaps a NAS that you need to keep alive for a few minutes during a brownout.